Thank you for watching today's Travel and Cruise Industry. It's time for today's Travel and Cruise Industry News. With the latest from travel and cruises around the world, here's your host, Chillie Falls.
I've got all the buttons all screwed up. Good morning and welcome to Travel and Cruise Industry News. And I was trying to do that outro instead of the intro, and sorry about that. All right. Here we are for Travel and Cruise Industry News. You guys most know that I've been out at the horse farm since last Thursday. Got back in yesterday and had a little package. And in the it's from my insurance provider. I have my insurance and Medicare and stuff through Humana. And there was a package for Humana, and it had 2 masks in it. So I got, come here. Whoops, I missed my ear. I got too much stuff behind the ear there. So anyway, I have 2 new masks from Humana. Can always use more. Of course, that's like preaching to the choir. I don't have to be told about the mask. So, but anyway, it was nice to get a little package with 2 masks in it. I had no idea. So anyway, welcome to Travel and Cruise Industry News. Busy show today. A lot of stuff to cover. I've had to make a slight alterations in the way I do things because there's so much volume of stuff literally on the show today that I'm going to give you guys a short encapsulated version of the story, and then a more detailed version will be followed in a video. One of the stories that I've got, not the lead story, but about the 3rd story down, I've already done the video for it and have it scheduled to go live at, I don't know, after the show, shortly after the show. It'll be live on this channel. And there's several other stories that there's so much detail in them that I'd like to share with you guys, that it's the only way to do it and keep any kind of a framework on timing on this show is to just do a short encapsulated version of the story here, and then do a video with a more detailed version that'll be posted today or tomorrow. Today and tomorrow. Too many to make them all at once. But anyway, so there'll be 4 or 5 videos up just coming from today's show. So you can look forward to that, if these stories, if any of it you want to further the details. So the lead story today is, 2 ports try to ban cruise ships and 2 destinations are open for U.S. travelers. And boy, you talking about being on the different end of the spectrum. That's a couple stories that are far removed for a change. So getting started on that, let's go first to the 2 areas that are having some problems and want to ban cruise ships. I'm trying to find my stories now. So, one of them is Bar Harbor, Maine, of all places. Who would have thought on that one? But Bar Harbor, Maine is trying to ban cruise ships, and they've succeeded at least in doing it for this year. So, and basically what happened with Bar Harbor, one of the small lines, America Cruise Line, which doesn't fall under the CDC guidelines, but it's one of the small ships. So they kind of are in a world all their own. They've been making a presentation to Bar Harbor to get them to allow some of their cruise ships in through these troubled times. And they made a presentation to Bar Harbor, which included a 20-page risk mitigation plan. And the presentation went to the town council meeting. It had outlined various procedures that the company was willing to take to call on Bar Harbor but ultimately it fell short, and the Bar Harbor Town Council voted to not allow any cruises or cruise ships of any size to land at Bar Harbor for the remainder of 2020. Not surprising in itself, but you'd think a town that counts a great deal on the income would be interested in getting some of that income started back if somebody wanted to bring some passengers there. I have not seen the entire detail of the thing. I know that they were talking about a limited capacity of 175 guests on the ship and 60 crew members. They'd have to self-quarantine at home for 7 days before the cruise departure, and some other details on that. But anyway, it fell short. So Bar Harbor says no to ships for 2020. The bigger of the two stories in that vein comes from Key West, Florida. And Key West, of course, has long been a popular itinerary for major cruise ships. They have now been able to put together a ballot initiative, which will be on the ballot for the November election. The Key West Committee for Safe, Cleaner Ships has set its sights on reducing the number of ships calling on Key West, using the current health crisis to bolster their argument. And the arguments made on the organization's website, they said we must balance the limited benefits of cruise ship against the larger health, environmental, and economic interests of Key West. Their plan to do so limit both the types of cruise ships allowed to dock and the number of passengers allowed to disembark on any given day. In their attempt to draw attention to the petition and referendum, the group focuses on the role cruise ships played in the early days of the current health crisis. You would know that they'd have to pick on that. They also argue that cruise ship passengers do not spend as much money while in Key West as do other types of tourists. Cruise ship passengers spend an average of only $32 in Key West versus $550 by all other tourists. It takes 17 cruise ship passengers to match the spending of one non-cruise ship tourist, the website claims. Well, duh. You know, the non-cruise ship tourist has got to pay transportation to get there, has got to pay for motels or hotels or condominiums or someplace to stay while they're there. A cruise ship passenger comes in and they get off the ship and take a tour, an excursion, go snorkeling, or like me, go to a bar or a restaurant and spend some money there. Go down Duval Street and do a crab haul on Duval Street. These folks want to cut that out completely. So they've got it on the referendum. It's a referendum on the ballot this fall. So, I mean, there's a possibility that our days of sailing to Key West will be over. Now, I don't think that's going to pass, but that's on the ballot there. Now, there's two places that are ready for American tourists, sort of. And you ask why I say sort of. Puerto Rico is requiring all visitors flying into the U.S. territory to take a coronavirus test 72 hours before their arrival. Those who don't or who test positive will be forced to quarantine for 2 weeks and take a molecular test while there. All commercial flights will continue to be limited to Puerto Rico's Maine International Airport in San Juan. Puerto Rico is still struggling with the virus, with record high infections last week, according to the Washington Post. But anyway, starting Wednesday, the U.S. territory will require all arriving passengers at Luis Munoz Marin International Airport, the only airport currently accepting commercial flights, to provide results from a recent molecular coronavirus test. If the arriving passenger doesn't comply, or they provide a positive test result, they will be forced to quarantine and take a coronavirus test in Puerto Rico. So they have some major stipulations. And as of the 15th, that's tomorrow, Puerto Rican will be open to inbound tourism. Things like recreational activities, museums, spas, theaters have already reopened at 75% capacity. Sunbathing on beaches is allowed, but groups are limited to members of the same household, according to the Associated Press. The crisis is not over in Puerto Rico, but they are trying to get things back going in the right direction. But there are stipulations and requirements to that. But if you're dying to travel, if you can find a flight, and that's going to the expanded version of this. There's going to be some information on air flights too. There are some, and they're going to have some more added, but that'll be in the video to follow this. But if you can get to San Juan and find a place to stay there, you can get a vacation in, even though we can't cruise. So just giving you that as an option. It's now open as of tomorrow. It'll be open to U.S. Tourists. And remember, a lot of places in this world, U.S. is not open. They won't let us in. Europe, for instance. As much as I'd like to go over and do something with Pete in London, I can't get there. So the other one that's officially going to welcome U.S. Passengers is Barbados. It opened yesterday. Opened its doors for tourists yesterday. Those who come to the island in the first weeks after the reopening will find some familiar hotels with open doors and several of the island's top attractions open for business. Travelers to Barbados will be required to either present proof of a negative COVID-19 swab test upon arrival, or immediately submit to a test and quarantine on Barbados at their own expense until receiving the test results. Visitors from high-risk destinations, like the U.S., will have to show proof of a negative test from an accelerated laboratory conducted within 72 hours of departure. Those from other countries will have up to 1 week prior to departing for Barbados to get their test done. Officials say the test results could take up to 48 hours. Anyone testing positive will be placed in isolation. And there's more information in this release on hotels that are open, hotels that will be opening, attractions that are open on Barbados, attractions that will be opening on Barbados. JetBlue is tentatively scheduled to resume 4 weekly flights from New York, beginning on the 25th of this month. Other air service will include twice weekly Air Canada service from Pearson International on Thursdays and Saturdays, British Airways weekly flights out of London Gatwick, and other regional flights. Virgin Atlantic service from Heathrow will return in August, and American Airlines will have flights coming out of Miami starting August the 5th. So Barbados is open and welcoming, but you got to go through these testing and the testing protocols and stuff before you're going to be able to do anything on the island. But they're taking U.S. tourists, which there's not a whole lot of places in the world that will. So there's 2 more. We talked about Aruba the other day. So Aruba, Puerto Rico, and Barbados are 3 places that will take Americans, despite all the problems we have in this country with the coronavirus. So I'll be back after this.
Do you have a bad back, bad hips, bad knees, or any other mobility issues? Think about Scoot-Around. For scooters, walkers, wheelchairs, even oxygen needs, delivered right to your cabin. Scoot-Around for all your mobility needs on your upcoming cruise.
All right. Now, by the way, I haven't even welcomed everybody. If you're new to this channel, we do this on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday mornings at 11 o'clock. Welcome aboard. We cover travel and cruise industry news and all sorts of stuff around those areas. I also regularly post videos on all facets of the travel and cruise industry. So if you want to keep up with the latest in cruise ships, ports of call, cruises themselves, and information like we're sharing on the show today and expanding through videos later on, just hit that little subscribe button. It's down there someplace. Hit the subscribe button and the bell notification tells you when I go live or when something new is posted. And of course, anything major happens, I'll go live immediately. Like yesterday, some of you probably saw that I put a video up concerning the Carnival Fantasy. If you missed out on that yesterday, the Carnival Fantasy has been sold. It's going to be scrapped. But what we have learned, it was a combination of yesterday and today. The Carnival Fantasy has been in Curacao unloading heavy equipment from the ship. They have already filed a plan to sail to Turkey, which is where the areas are that I'd call it the ship graveyard, where they're going to be taken apart, sold for scrap. Now, the interesting thing and what we've also found out this morning is that there are two ships in Curacao that are being unloaded. They're both Fantasy class ships. Of course, the Fantasy's one. The Carnival Inspiration is another. Nothing has been said officially on the Carnival Inspiration. Is that the next one to go? It looks like, if you're a tea reader and reading the tea leaves, that possibly the Carnival Inspiration is going to be next. We know the Fantasy, even though Carnival still has the Fantasy on their website. It has not been taken off the website yet. But we know that they have filed sailing plans to go to Turkey. And that's where the scrapyard is. Now, the Inspiration, they're seemingly doing the same thing at the same time in Curacao. According to the Curacao Ports Authority, both ships are currently docked at Bryan Wharf in Wilmenstad, and apparently heavy equipment is being unloaded. This is often a sign that a ship will be scrapped and possibly sold off. So Carnival Inspiration may be the next. They're normally based out of Long Beach and sail the short cruises out of Long Beach down to the Mexican Riviera. Both vessels have been featured on ship brokerage sites recently. And of course, the story broke yesterday that Fantasy has been sold. Again, that did not come directly from Carnival, but it came from a source inside Carnival to one of the industry information services. But it looks like there's a good possibility that the Inspiration may be next. Carnival has already said that they are going to do away with 13 ships. The Fantasy would be number 3. Could it be that the Inspiration is number 4? The Inspiration entered into service in 1996 and sails under the Fantasy class design. It last underwent a dry dock in November of 2018. Could that have been the final one? The ship is 70,000 gross tons with a passenger capacity of 2,054. The vessel also has a capacity of 920 crew members. So, good possibility. That's number 4 in the list of ships that Carnival is going to divest themselves with. So, Costa Cruise Line. This one kind of surprised me a little bit. Not so much that Costa would say this, but the detailed and complication of a cruise line getting restarted is amazing. Now, this is primarily for our friends on the European side of things, although there's, an occasional Costa ship on this side of the pond, but they're primarily in Europe. The Italian cruise line Costa Cruises planned to resume sailing on 7 of its cruise ships by the end of January 2021. So they're expanding their suspension even further, although they're starting, but it's going to carry on until January 2021 if all goes well. The company plans on only Italian guests can board the cruise ships with limited occupancy and strict health and safety protocols at first. The first ships to resume sailing will have trips to Italian ports and with a possible stop in Valletta, Malta, according to the plan. Gradually in phase 2 and 3, French and Spanish guests will be allowed to board the ships. And finally, cruises will be open to all European citizens. Notice there's no mention of U.S. citizens in there at this time. First Costa ship to hit the high seas will be the Deliciosa. Wow, I have trouble getting that one out. Which will sail from Venice August 15th on a 7-day Eastern Mediterranean voyage. And it goes on and goes through each ship and scheduled when they're going to start at phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4 and phase 5 for all the ships until they get to January when the fleet will be sailing its regular scheduled itinerary. It's quite a complex, lengthy story that covers just a ton of stuff. Interestingly enough, they're saying no Americans. So until we get this situation in this country straightened out, folks, it's going to be that way. People need to wise up to that one. All right, there's one other story that, I was not aware of. This one kind of took me a bit by surprise. Royal Caribbean's, there's two stories actually. Royal Caribbean's Monarch of the Seas made her final voyage, arriving at the scrapyard in Turkey on Monday. And the Monarch, of course, sailed for years and years and years from 1990 to 2013 under Royal Caribbean, mostly doing Bahamas trips out of Port Canaveral. Then it was sold to, or wasn't sold, but because Royal Caribbean still owned Pullmantur, but it was moved over to Pullmantur in 2013 and sailed as a Pullmantur ship until they went belly up earlier this year. And it was decided that the former Monarch of the Seas would be sold to scrap, at which it was done. And it reached the scrapyard yesterday. So that was a famous old ship in this country that a lot of people have sailed on over the years. And she is no more. The other story from that I had to make mention of today. The world's only biker rally cruise, High Seas Rally, will now take place on Royal Caribbean's Mariner of the Sea, October of 22nd of 2021. So for all you bikers and biker chicks out there, get ready to go cruising. Riding with all the excitement and camaraderie of a motorcycle rally, the High Seas Rally will sail on Mariner of the Seas from Port Canaveral to Nassau, Coco Key, Puerto Plata and Dominican Republic, and Labadee and Haiti. That's a nice itinerary. I kind of like the itinerary. This will be the 21st High Seas Rally. You know what? I didn't know there was a biker rally on cruise ships. Especially, there's been 20 of them before. This will be the 21st. I missed out on that. I'm not a biker, but still, you'd think I'd at least know about it. Interestingly enough, on the ship this time, the slow ride at sea, they're going to call it, will be headlined by Foghat plus Molly Hatchet. More bands will be announced in the coming months. And one of the things they do on this cruise is the stars that are on it, and there are several, the entertainers, they join in with the cruisers. They don't perform and go hide behind stage. They're out there partying with everybody through the whole cruise, which I think is kind of neat. So, but then that's me. So, anyway, so a bunch of stories here this morning. Again, the detailed versions of several of these will be up as videos as we go ahead. There's just a lot going on in the world today. So one other thing to point out, most of you know that Sunday we had Sue Bryan on the Cruises for Solo show from London that I co-host with Pete and John. Fabulous show. Sue was just a fabulous, fascinating guest. Ran out of time. I could have literally asked her questions for a couple more hours. I mean, she was just really, really good. So if you missed the show, folks, down in the description of the video down here, down below, there's going to be a link that'll take you right straight to the to YouTube, and you can replay that show. It is well worth watching. It was a thoroughly enjoyable hour of entertaining. We've already had 4,000 views, which is, to me, is constantly amazing. The kind of viewership we get from that show. I mean, keep in mind, folks, that this show is less than 2 months old from when we started it. It's called The Three Amigos. It's on the Cruising for Solos channel. That's Pete's channel, Cruising for Solos. And it's every Sunday at 3:00 my time, which is 8:00 London time. And we've had fabulous guests every week, but Sue Bryant was just excellent. She's one of the probably top 10 travel writers in the world. She's written a bunch of books, hundreds of articles. She's traveled the world over. Just some of her stories were just awesome. So it's well worth the watch if you missed out on the show. Don't know who we're going to have on this week. I've got to talk to Pete today. Of course, by me being out at the horse farm and getting back and forth, I haven't talked to him yet, so we've got to see what we got coming up this week. Don't even know yet. Anyway, so let's go over and see what we got in the way of comments here this morning. I haven't even looked yet to see who's here today. Jason, by the way, Jason's cruise on Carnival, it's scheduled for October, first week in October. I had a text from him earlier this morning. They've opened it up to sell some more cabins. We're not sure about that one because it had been closed. So I'm thinking maybe they could have even had a bunch of cancellations since that's the first week of October, and they're filling those spots now, maybe. Or maybe they decided to add some more people on. Not sure why, but you can now get on that Carnival Breeze cruise on October 3rd, I think it is. Memory serves me correctly. But anyway, Jason from Pittsburgh, welcome aboard. I still need to talk to you, and we need to get together sometime in the next day or two. Amy's with us. Hey, Amy, good to have you here again. Gretchen, of course, from out in Ohio. Gretchen has a nice dog that I like. Tom Henry says, hello, everyone. And it says also it's good to see Jason, Tom says. Jason says they're going to scrap the Carnival Inspiration next. That's my guess and several other people's guess. That story wasn't entirely from my creation. But I do believe that that's going to happen simply because they're both doing the same thing. The Fantasy, we know, because they've already filed it's like a flight plan only for boats. They've filed the plan that they're going to the scrapyard in Turkey. But right next door is the Inspiration, and they're taking the same equipment off of it that they took off the Fantasy. So I'm betting you that today or tomorrow, you're going to see a story that the Inspiration is the next one sold. Amy says Maine is strict about people even driving into their state. I live in Rhode Island, and we have a low COVID rate. And up until 10 days ago, we were told that we would have to quarantine for 2 weeks before. Wow. Even from you guys that are, yeah. I'm not totally surprised at that, Amy. And goodness knows you guys are doing great up there compared to the rest of the country. Man, Florida and Arizona and Texas and California, they're just awful. And I just don't see any end in sight. And again, folks, until we get some kind of therapeutics and a vaccine, there's two things that we all have to do. Wear your mask, socially distance, and of course, always keep the cleanliness going. Keep your hands washed and don't touch your face and all those kind of things. But until we have a policy that says you have to wear a mask in public to force these folks that are still claiming that this is a hoax. There was a terrific story came out of Texas yesterday. I believe it was a 30-year-old was in the hospital, and he looked up at his nurse and said, I made a mistake. I thought this was a hoax, and it was a mistake. He said that 20 minutes before he died, 30 years old. Folks, this is not a mistake. This is not a hoax. This is not people trying to keep the president from being reelected. This is not the administration claiming that Dr. Fauci is wrong about everything. He's only wrong about everything because he happens to stand up and talk for science and tells us what's happening straightforward instead of trying to sugarcoat it like the administration's been doing. And look at where it's gotten them. Look at what Florida's doing. Look at what Texas is doing. Look at what California's doing and other states. Man, We need leadership. We need somebody to say, the only way we're going to do this, folks, is to wear your mask in public and socially distance until we get a vaccine, and quit saying, oh, yeah, it's doing great. We got vaccines coming. We got this, all this sideline cheering. I'm all in favor of what they're doing, but we don't have it yet. So let's not talk about what's going to happen maybe 6 months from now. Let's try to do some things to get the curve back and get this thing going down instead of going up. I didn't want to rant today, folks. I'll quit ranting. Emily says, good morning, gang. Hey, Emily, glad to have you up there in New York. New York, who had zero on the other, yesterday? First time they've had a zero in numbers. Fabulous. If Key West passes their law, Amy says, if Key West passes their law, it will close Key West cruising to mainstream and budget cruisers. Only the ritzy ships with have clientele to match will be able to cruise. Why not limit to one ship per day? I've said that all along. I totally agree with that, Amy. Put a limit on it, but let people go to Key West. I mean, for the people that live there and work there, and I mean that's a big industry in Key West. Put a limit on. Don't ban all cruise ships. I get so tired of people blaming the cruise industry for everything. Curacao and Barbados seem to help the cruise lines the most. Well, I think you're right on that one, Jason. They seem to do it a lot. Emily says, Chillie, you have some nice t-shirts. One of the things that I do, and this is this is one of my, I had to look, see what I have on, a Bahamas cruise shirt. About all I do when I go on a cruise is I buy a couple of t-shirts every time I go on one. I'm not one of these people to go buy tchotchkes and the stuff on and the tourist crap. I buy t-shirts because I wear t-shirts. I like t-shirts. So yeah, I buy a lot of t-shirts. So when I go on a cruise, if I could take a bathing suit and about 10 t-shirts, I wouldn't have to pack anything else. Then they want me to dress at dinner and wear long pants. God, I hate long pants. So, sound like the cruise ships. Tom says, sound like the cruise ships should have testing for all passengers on the ship to get off at the port with results prior to arrival. The whole what we're used to on cruises is going to be different, folks. I mean, it has to be because number one, if we can ever get things curbed in this country, so we will be accepted again in the world. Like right now, we're persona non grata, but it's not what I've done. It's not what most of the people that watch this program have done. It's what's going on in the rest of the country. It's what's going on with you people that saying, I'm not going to wear a mask. That we are persona non grata in the majority of the world right now. So, Emily says, Tom, in my opinion, it's not a bad idea. I'll be safe and keep safe. Yeah, I agree. Let's see. A lab on each ship. Yeah, to keep you tested all the time. Yeah, at 6,000 passengers, we got to do 6,000 tests 3 times a day. And as for 7-day cruise, you got to do 417,000 tests on the 7-day cruise. So, but we'll make sure you're safe. No, I mean, I'm making fun of that, but Nikki's here. Hey, Nikki, good to see you. Can we cruise again, or was it all a bad dream? Not yet. Not yet. And feel so bad. You know what? I don't even know did I tell you about Bahamas Paradise? I didn't even tell you about Bahamas Paradise because you're talking about being locked. That's the video that I already did this morning, which will go live shortly. Bahamas Paradise has backed up their sailing date from July 25th to August 28th, I think the date is. You'll have to watch the video to see it. But because of the tremendous spike in COVID-19 down there in Florida, for the safety and well-being of everybody, and they were getting pressure from all ends, that they backed up their sailing date from the 25th of July, and they were still scheduled till yesterday to sail on the 25th of July. Well, now they backed it up to August 28th. Still, as of today, they are the only cruise line with a green light from CDC. Nobody else, no other cruise line has a green light from CDC. But this was an in-house decision because of the situation down there in Florida and around the country, that they have backed up the sailing day. A wise maneuver. As much I love these folks a lot, obviously, because he was on this program, was on this channel, was one of the interviews that I got, and I consider these guys friends now, and I've told them my first time I can get to Florida, I'm going on one of their boats. So, and I will. So anyway, they've had to back it up. So I feel bad for them, but I think it was a good move. And I've said this to you guys before, until we can get this thing curbed, until we can get things heading in the right direction, none of us are going to cruise. I'm sorry, Jason, I hope we can get it done before yours. And I know yours is still live. And I know there's a couple of you out there that are scheduled in October that are still live. And I'm rooting for you. I'm worried about it, but I'm rooting for you. So, Nikki says, hi, Emily, love your mask. Unless the virus is over by then, half the passengers will be good for social distancing and more room to spread out. Not a bad idea, in my opinion. Yeah, that's true. But the thing is, you do set up these deals for the cruise lines to get started. Okay, so they're going at 50% capacity. Let's say they can't afford that for long. Now, it's one thing to get started, but their business model does not allow to have cruise ships with a 50% capacity. I don't know what the number is. They probably have to have 85% capacity or 90% capacity to be profitable. And the same with the airlines. The airlines can't operate and half full planes. Hell, they're flying some of them with less than that. But they can't do that for long. It costs money to fly them damn things. Anyway, let's see. Emily's talking about being on the Dawn. Of course, with this continually goes back and forth without all you guys chatting, and it's great. I usually have to go back and read through the whole thing because you guys have talked about all kinds of stuff that I miss when I just try to skim through it. There was a funny picture on Facebook today, 2 beekeepers saying they told the third a face mask was recommended. He declined due to his rights. The bees enjoyed him. Oh, that was terrific. Yeah. That's the way it goes. I support idiots not wearing masks and then getting the virus and passing. Helps improve the gene pool. Only Tom would come up with that. I agree. I hate to say it, but I agree. I had a very serious discussion with my suitcase, and I told my suitcase there would be no vacation this year. And now I'm dealing with emotional baggage. that's it for today, folks. I'm being silly. And when I get to that point, I got to shut up and get going. So you guys have a great day. Again, I'm going to get some videos up on several of these stories that had just way too much details to try to fit into our program here. So just watch out for them if you're interested in any of those stories. They'll be up the next today or tomorrow and so forth. So anyway, that's it for today, guys. You guys stay safe. Wear your mask. If you go out, stay away from people. Keep the social distancing up. And by all means, preach to everybody. So you guys have a great day. I'll see you next time. This is Chillie, the Fat Travel Guy. Later, y'all.
It's time for today's travel and cruise industry news. Thank you for watching today's travel and cruise industry news. Join us every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern for another episode. Travel and Cruise Industry News is a production of Chillie's Cruises.